Hello, everybody. How are you? So, this is the second time we do NASCAR Hub. I know it's been a week and we already have a lot of news to cover, but for today, let's bring some hosting to the show because it is me, Angel Roberto Diaz Rado. You already know me, and Maxwell Fay. You already know him. He is officially back.
Yep, I am back, everyone. Hello, everyone. Last NASCAR fan here. Glad to join for NASCAR Hub for tonight's podcast.
Yeah, and starting with the news, let's start with some politicians news surrounding NASCAR. So there's a politician in Arizona that you already mentioned to me, Maxwell, that they're gonna run an Xfinity Series team.
So yeah, it looks like they plan on racing an Xfinity team, but from what I've seen the pics, that they leaked on Instagram was that they were using for some odd reason for their show car like a Gen 6 car, and it had the sponsor of the politician. I can't recall the name. I'll leave it in the comments when this uploads to YouTube. But it's a very interesting story and already sounds very sketchy from the beginning, but that's not even the breaking point of what the real story behind the car is.
Yeah. And speaking of Gen 6, I mean, the Xfinity Series is still running Gen 6. They're not going to change to Gen 7 like until in around 4 or 5 more years.
Yeah, so like their show car though, it's like a Gen 6 Cup car.
Mm-hmm.
That's what their show car was, which already sounds sketchy from the beginning. So, yeah, but there's more with that. We'll get into that a little in more detail later on in tonight's show.
Yeah, and speaking of sketchy, how about we stay with the Xfinity Series to continue the drama surrounding LGV Coin? So in last NASCAR Hub, I explained what Bob Pockrass said about NASCAR denying the sponsorship to sponsor Brandon Brown for this season in the Xfinity Series, but there's more ongoing. The drama's still going because it is associated with the politicians that you mentioned, Maxwell, that they want to run.
So yeah, from what they stated, that was that the senator from Arizona, or the politician from Arizona, was inquiring LGB Coin, the company, to sponsor them.
Which we already know NASCAR has.
It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, NASCAR has stated that they have banned LGB Coin for the moment for this season. And speaking of teams, how about let's go into some driver changes. They are continuing in and out, and even during this off season. I mean, we already seen some pretty big moves like Matt Benedetto being demoted all the way back to the Truck Series, as well as Ryan Preece running in a second chance opportunity.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see, especially Preece, because going from Preece's background of being a very big modified racer, he's a really still good modified racer because he runs part-time here and there. But after racing with Joe Gibbs in the Xfinity Series for a couple of years part-time, and then another kind of like a full-time part-time ride, and I think it was 2017 or 2018, excuse me, and then jumping all the way to Cup and then jumping to JTG in 2019, and now he's 37 lease is done, and now he's getting that what you stated, the last second chance. I mean, being a backup driver for Stewart-Haas Racing, but not just Stewart-Haas Racing, but trucks and Xfinity as well. He's going to be running all 3 series part time.
Yeah, and there's a little more story on that backup driver that we're going to be discussing a little bit later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like more changes. Like Landon Castle is slated to run the Clash at the Coliseum, as well as AJ Allmendinger. I mean, we all know that the clash is for pole winners or even race winners, but NASCAR has basically doubled down with the format, basically letting every single charter team to compete in the clash.
I really like that idea as well because it gives more of a bigger field, and it's not just like the pole winners or like former clash winners. I really like what NASCAR is doing on their behalf because they want this. People want to see more action. They just don't want to see an 18 car field show up.
Yeah. Or even like it was with the Budweiser shootout, which was a 25 car wreck fest in the big plate track. I mean,
those were good days. Those were good days.
yeah,
I miss those days.
Yeah, but speaking of those drivers, I mean, Landon Castle, we all know that he hasn't been in the Cup Series ever since Starcom kicked him out of the ride in replace of Quinn Houff. And we all knew that AJ Allmendinger was going to be there. I mean, he won the the race at Indianapolis, which was considered for me one of the worst races of 2021. But I like that idea. I like that Allmendinger is going to be back in the clash.
Yeah, it's really nice to see. Especially, yeah, what you said, Allmendinger. Ever since after he was kicked out of GTG Doherty and then he went back to the Xfinity Series, people thought his career was really going to like die with Colleague because Colleague was still small, especially because they expanded into the Xfinity operation. Not really expanded, but it's sort of expanded because like they added another car to their line. They added two more cars, the 10 and the 16 for the part-time. But then when Allmendinger started winning races, everyone started to realize he's starting to resurge his career at Colleague, and it's a no-brainer of why Colleague is having him drive part-time next season again in the Cup Series for even a few more races. I'm just going to be a little bit worried about Noah Gragson.
Oh boy, I mean, don't get me wrong, Noah Gragson, he's slated to run the duels to get into the 500, and he's going to be doing some select starts with Colic, but yeah, I'm a little worried for him.
Yeah,
he's been a pretty good driver for Junior Motorsports after basically having a slow start with Kyle Busch Motorsports in the Truck Series.
Yeah, he's been okay. He hasn't been like groundbreaking talent, but he's been okay. The problem I have with Gragson is that he's just a hothead. The kid literally, like, I know the point of like giving zero fucks and everything. That's an okay motto for a driver, but like when like being a complete hothead on the racetrack and just wrecking people like on purpose, like even though if it's like an Earnhardt situation, that's whatever because it's an Earnhardt situation, but then like just going after people is just ridiculous. Like the dude like has a lot of anger issues on and off the track.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of a hothead to Harrison Burton in the fall race at Martinsville. I had to watch the whole race again, basically because I don't have cable, and I watched it like once when it first came out in the NASCAR channel on YouTube, and yeah, yeah, he wasn't letting him pass with the first stage.
Yeah, it was. I watched a little bit of that race because I watched the ending mostly because I was working that during the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
But we're getting a little off topic. Let's get back to the news headlines.
Yeah, and speaking of the Cup Series, yeah, this week we're seeing next gen testing, and what better way to talk about next gen testing than with the Series X. Most popular driver, Dale Earnhardt Jr., tested for Hendrick Motorsports in the number 5 Chevy.
Woo! Let's go!
I mean, like Michael Root would say, Redneck Jesus.
Yes, Redneck Jesus himself.
I mean, Dale Jr. is done.
Yeah,
In the
he's
Cup
done
Series.
with Cup. He doesn't want to race. He doesn't even want to do a Daytona 500 because what he stated in a press conference interview is that like he doesn't want to take the risk. And he gave an example of like how William Byron, his young body, he can manage it, but with Dale Jr.'s 47-year-old body, he doesn't want to take the risk and end up with something broken, like what Gordon also said back when he announced his retirement in 2015.
And basically,
And
mainly
kind of like Kyle Busch as well in the Xfinity and Truck Series, how he never does plate races anymore ever since his leg injury in 2015.
Mm-hmm. Like mostly, Junior does this mostly because of his concussion history. I mean,
Well,
we talked
yeah,
about it.
because like that concussion that happened in 2016 was just a sideline. It was like completely. It was a blindside. Actually, I would say it came out of nowhere. I didn't realize like Junior was having didn't realize how bad his injuries were really getting to him. And people started to notice that was like the end of Dale Jr.'s Cup career was with that announcement of his concussion, and especially having both Alex Bowman and Jeff Gordon being the substitute drivers for those races for the rest of the season.
I mean, it's true. I mean, both drivers did a pretty good job, especially Gordon and Martinsville. But
oh yeah, Gordon ran a great race in Martinsville. And it was a great way to cap off his Cup career.
yeah, and as for Dale Jr. himself, I mean, that concussion was I think it started in Michigan. Especially
Yeah, it
because,
was really interesting how he got that concussion because like it came out of nowhere. Like
yeah, I mean, if you take a look at the concussion, I mean, there's like this foam thing that goes in between your knees while on the race car that was supposed to be held in place to protect Junior, and it didn't. It wasn't held in place when the impact took place. So that's probably what caused the concussion.
yeah, but the point we're trying to make is that Junior tested for Hendrick, but unfortunately he will not be doing a cup. He's not doing another cup race ever again in his career. But however, he will be racing I think was the fall or the spring Richmond race again
Yeah,
in the 88. And let me say it
yeah, but
again, 88 Hellman's Chevrolet Camaro. That's going to be awesome. I already got that diecast pre-ordered.
oh, nice. And well, for it to be his return, like his yearly return to the Xfinity series, if I were a Junior fan, I would just bump my tickets for Richmond.
Yeah, I really want him to do Road America. I really want to see him and like Tony Stewart do Road America because that would be really fun to see.
Yeah.
I want to see Bill Elliott do it again because I didn't go to that race sadly. My first time going to Road America was last year, but my first cup race was the 2017 fall Pocono race.
Oh yeah, that an amazing race for for the fuel mileage.
Oh
But anyways,
yeah,
sticking
well
with
then
the
lap one pile up.
yeah. So anyway, let's stick up with the next gen conversation for a little bit here, because next gen testing has showed us that, well, the car can run good,
Yeah,
but that's
videos.
only on, yeah. I mean, I only saw the first test, and it did run pretty good on a pack, especially when Joe Logano, Austin Cindric, and Harrison Burton were running around the in the backstretch. That Austin Cindric got a really good slingshot on the 21 car.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Even I think it was like Cindric that got like loose or something like that. I can't remember who got loose, but it looked really good. Like the pack racing looks excellent.
Yeah. I mean, if we take a look at the pack racing, that will be pretty good, and especially because of two major players here, the the racing package that they're going to be using, which I do believe that they have the spoiler a little bit high, and and the other change is the fifth gear in the car, which is it's really weird to have 5 gears in a NASCAR
Yeah, I
stock
know
car.
it's going to be really interesting to have fifth gear instead of just fourth gear as the final gear. But what can you say? It's going to make the racing look more interesting. It's like going to be more pack racing. Like everything's balanced out. So like there's no distinct advantage. It's all about the talent behind the drivers. So
Yeah,
we could actually see an upset again this year at Daytona.
yeah, that's true. I mean that showed us that the days of controlled assist from the car are a thing of the past, and if we do eventually see a surprise winner for the first time since Trevor Bayne in the Daytona 500, or even Michael McDowell last year, I would say that the brand new package for the next gen car at Daytona and Talladega really worked.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree on that on your behalf.
Yeah, and speaking of those underdog stories, one of those ones underdogs is gonna be done. He is gonna be done after 2022. Aric Almirola, Mr. Cuban Missile, the Mr. Smithfield boy. Get that focus on the Smithfield. He's gonna be retiring from Stewart Haas Racing after 2022, and there might be some talks that Smithfield might not come back as a sponsor for Stewart Haas next year.
Yeah, in regards to that, I mean, Almirola is like this is his 15th season in Cup. Nobody knows if you're a really diehard NASCAR fan or even a huge diehard Aric Almirola fan. You know of his days when he used to drive for actually none other than Bobby Ginn. But then after Bobby Ginn's team shut down and pretty much after halfway through the season when DEI picked up EO1 points, they still had Almirola, but they fired him.
Mm-hmm.
They fired him, and he was on his way. And then he moved over. He went back to
Yeah,
actually during that season as well. He was with Joe Gibbs.
yeah.
He was
I
with Joe
mean,
Gibbs, and
mhm.
um, none other than Bobby Ginn. And then
Yeah.
eventually he would still be with D, and then he went to DEI after Mark Martin left in 2008, and then that team folded as well in early
Mhm.
09, and then Almirola was stranded without a ride until KBM.
Yeah.
Technically Billy Blue and Kyle Busch when they were a team before KBM really began to take off. Almirola drove truck races for that team and really started to put Kyle Busch Motorsports, his team, on the map. And then eventually led to his cup ride with none other than what would be Richard Petty Motorsports, actually. And then the rest would be history. And then Stuart Haas, and then here we are now.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Almirola, let's. I mean, looking at his stats, he made a lone start in the K&N Pro Series East, which was in 2008, and he got that win. So there it is. In one start, a top five and a top 10, and he led 27 of the 150 laps he competed in that race, and he qualified eight for that race. So we could say that his career was pretty good, but if we take a look at his ARCA starts, he only made two starts, in one in 2005 and the other one in 2008. So two starts, he didn't have a top 10 or a pole or neither a victory, but he led 10 laps in in that race, in one of those races. So his career started a little slow, especially considering that he has only made in 8 years combined 78 starts for the Camping World Truck Series. He earned two wins, but with 38 top tens, that's not ultimately to put him as one of the all-time best of the Truck Series.
Yeah, we won't forget the infamous Milwaukee Mile 2007 race where Denny Hamlin couldn't. He didn't
Yeah,
board his plane or whatever. He couldn't get to Milwaukee in time. So Joe Gibbs at the last second, they had him drive the 20, But when Hamlin landed, Rockwell Automation, the CEO or whatever, said
Yeah.
he wanted Hamlin in the car. So that's why they pulled Almirola down pit road during the caution and they made the driver change. And poor Almirola, because he was dominating that race.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, the story. I mean, meanwhile the Cups were meanwhile Cup was at Sonoma. The the Xfinity Series was at Milwaukee Mile, and there was some horrible miscommunication because they were originally gonna let Aric Almirola compete in the car because Denny Hamlin's helicopter couldn't find a place to land.
Yeah, the helicopter wasn't a
Yeah,
plane. I thought it was a plane for a second,
yeah,
but you're right, it's
it was
helicopter.
a helicopter, and after that, I mean, if I was Almirola, I would spit on that trophy every morning I woke up from bed.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
it
an
was a it was
unfair.
a it was an ugly moment in 2007. Arguably, it was like that was like one of the moments that like really made people hate Rockwell Automation and how they kind of like left NASCAR because of that controversy.
Yeah, and after that, he wanted a release with JGR, but in that moment, one of the managers at the Joe Gibbs Racing team from Xfinity, which was JD Gibbs, he disagreed because he said that Almirola was an important part of their program because they've developed him since his late model days, and then they broke up the news that he was gonna be let go from Joe Gibbs Racing after 2007
Yep.
after he does his last 5 starts for the team, and then he eventually went on to the Cup Series to make 6 starts with DEI.
Well, yeah, and Bobby Ginn actually as well. Bobby
Yeah,
Ginn hired him right
yeah,
after he left. Right after he left Joe Gibbs, and then after Bobby Ginn, after that team folded, after during the late last half of the 2007 season, you mentioned DEI, they picked up both Mark Martin, Regan Smith, and Aric Almirola, and they still developed Almirola.
yeah. And then in 2008, he made some select starts in the number 8 car. He was sharing it with Mark Martin as they were both in part time. He managed a top 10, yes, but other than that, he did basically nothing. And then 2009, he was slated to run full time in the 8 car because Mark Martin left for Hendrick Motorsports' 5 car, but the full time effort only made it to Texas in April.
Yeah, and that was also because of sponsorship issues, because of DEI, because of Teresa Earnhardt. She couldn't manage sponsors at all. Like they had so much problems finding sponsors, it was ridiculous. Like fund they could only fund Martin Truex Jr. MTJ's ride,
Yeah, I
which
mean,
was really sad actually.
yeah, because there was a lot of money in the team when Budweiser was a sponsor, but then Budweiser left for Evernham after Junior left for Hendrick Motorsports, and
Yeah.
that eventually bailed them under, and eventually they merged with Chip Ganassi and Felix Sabates,
Yep.
but
Earnhardt
Almirola would only
Ganassi.
yeah yeah Almirola would only make 9 starts in 2010. In 2011, we didn't see him at the track. He was focused on the Xfinity Series, and it wasn't until 2012 where he raced for the
Returned.
reincorporated Richard Petty Motorsports that he
Yep.
ever returned to full-time racing.
Yep, he took over AJ Allmendinger's 43 ride, and he didn't really do much in that 43 in 2012 from what I remember. He was just very mid pack. He like ran like it was like his average star was like I think it was like 23.4 something like that. And like
Yeah,
his finish was like a 25.6 or something like that.
well,
He
his average.
never could perform well at like any track. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it was Richard Petty Motorsports. They couldn't do much, but Marcus Ambrose, on the other hand, he had a pretty decent season, even winning at Watkins Glen that year.
I mean, uh, his 2012 stats with the team, he didn't win a race, but he at least got a top 5 and 4 top 10s. He got a pole, and his average start was 16.2 and average finish was 20.0. So
Oh shit, I was really off.
yeah, you're really off. So yeah, Aric Almirola knew that he had something under his brain to make this team work. And then in 2013 it got better because he gathered 2 more top 6. So he finished the year with 1 top 5 and 6 top 10. Sorry,
Yeah, that
and
was
and he
yeah.
led less laps than in 2012, but he improved on average start. Well, he decreased on average start, but improved on average finish with an 18.8.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, he started to look more in the top 15s
Yeah,
in 2013. Like he was really trying. He was really improving in the 43. As we get to 2014, was a very big groundbreaking year as he
oh,
finally got that first win, and it was at Daytona, and it was a washed out Daytona, sadly.
yeah. Watch that Daytona, but very curiously, it was one special occasion because it was 30 years after the historic 200 victory of Richard Petty,
Which is so
and
incredible.
yeah. And despite being eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, he was still showing that Richard Petty Motorsports was a sub top 25 team, but improving to a top 20 team with 2 top 5 and 7 top 10s. And he decreased, yes, on average finish with 21.4, but overall he performed really good in 2014. And 2015, let's say that, I mean, he didn't have a win, but he
No,
increased on top 5s with 3, but decreased with 6 top 10s. So that might have been a little bit of a wacky season
it was a
for
little bit of an
Almirola.
off year. Yeah, he had a
Yeah,
lot of he had problems occasionally.
yeah, and he improved on average finish with a 17.3. Though, so
Yeah,
in 14 years combined, that's part of it. That's one of his best average finish with uh with Richard Petty. But then in 2016, we remember 2016 as one of the worst years for to be a Richard Petty fan.
oh my god.
I
I
mean,
don't know
yeah,
how that even survived. I don't know how that they managed a 2-car team that year because it was always Brian Scott going to the garage every goddamn race.
I mean, speaking of 2 car operations,
Like,
they
okay,
let go Sam
let's just put
Hornish.
it this. Everyone knows of the infamous Roush 2018 season with Austin Cindric, Ty Majeski, and Chase Briscoe. Like, they literally crashed every race. It was like I think it was like 2 races where they literally finished the race perfectly, no issues at all. Let's just say 2016, Brian Scott like destroyed that record completely. Even though he had that second place finish at Talladega in the fall race, it was still a bad year. It was still a
Yeah,
bad season it was such a bad season that Brian Scott retired from
yeah,
full-time racing. Like it was that bad.
yeah. I mean, like I was saying, they let go Sam Hornish in replacement for Brian Scott, and they rebranded the 9 to the 43, and
44.
well, for the 44, sorry. And well, the best out of the two was Aric Almirola, obviously, but he only netted 1 top 10, and he decreased drastically in average finish with a 23.3, and he only led 1 lap, so it was not a great time to be a Richard Petty fan. And then
No, it wasn't.
we go to 2017. It was looking really promising. I mean, he was starting the year slow but pretty good until,
Until Kansas.
yeah. I mean, whose
Oh my
idea
god.
was to have Joe Logano's tire blown up and hit Danica Patrick, and why it happened by
Yeah.
Lady Luck? I don't know, but yeah, that's
It
basically
was
the
a bad
story.
crash. Like I knew like that was a bad crash from the start. Like
Yeah, I mean, the way that he hit the Joe Logano's car, it was like a 180 miles per hour hit.
yeah,
That
like
hurts.
he ran his line and he just like crashed like right into the left rear, like the left front, and just destroyed his hood. Like he went like both of his back wheels went into air. Like to quote Trevor Bayne and Jamie McMurray, like they were like, "Oh my gosh, that was
Yeah.
not good." And
Yeah,
like
that
Bayne was like,
was.
"Gosh, I hope they're okay. That was a really hard hit."
Yeah, I mean, the way he hit,
Like
the
they're
way he
like
hit, the
the
way he hit,
drivers were saying like that was like one of the hardest hits they've ever seen in a replay.
yeah, I
Like it
mean,
was that bad.
yeah, the way he hit Logano and how hard he hit Logano, that was a heck of a lick. I mean, what caused his injury was not the initial impact, I believe, when he hit Logano. What caused the injury for Almirola, because he already have his bones weak, he already have his vertebrae weak after that first impact. What made the injury worse was the hammering that the car took when the rear tires went back to ground.
Yeah, that was like that's how it strained his back.
Yeah, and it was, even though it was testified as a T5 vertebrae injury, I still call it a collapsed vertebrae because of what
Yeah,
happened.
it was really awful. And just to pretty much say what happened after was that they announced Bubba Wallace would be the substitute driver while Almirola was healing, which let's just say Bubba was not that bad. He was running really good, and he was actually during the 2017 season, sadly for him, he was let
Mm.
go by Roush because they closed up the six team operation because of lack of sponsorship.
Yeah, and yeah, that was pretty bad, but overall, in 29 starts, he garnered three top fives and six top tens. So
Yeah, he
Almirola
actually was
improved.
really close.
Yeah.
We forgot to mention in 2015 he was super close on making the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it
he
was the
was.
Richmond race. I remember he was driving the Waffle House car.
Oh yeah.
That was a really cool car, and he drove another Waffle House car in 2016. I think he did it in 2017 as well.
Yeah.
Just a little off topic. Off topic. They made both the 2015 and 2016 Waffle House die casts.
Yeah. And he had an average finish of 18.8, but with that, there was a huge debate on who wanted to keep Almirola and
Like,
in the car, and who
yeah, it
wanted
was
to
like
send
what
House
direction Richard Petty
Wallace.
Motorsports wanted to take. Do they want to keep their driver? Or do they want
Yeah.
to start off fresh? And what they did was sadly start off fresh. They brought in Bubba Wallace,
Yeah.
and
And that pissed off Smithfield, and they followed Almirola to Stewart Haas. That
yep,
damn Bacon can be such a loyal sponsor.
yeah, they're so loyal to Almirola. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and then in 2018 was also a fresh start for Almirola. New team, a much race winning team, but unfortunately
Danica
he was
Patrick's
taking the
ride.
ride of the worst ride in Cup Series at that moment, the 10 car.
Yep, Danica Patrick, because
Yeah,
she was fired finally.
yeah,
I don't know how she managed that Cup ride. It's
yeah,
unbelievable how she managed that Cup ride. Like she couldn't even. It was sad.
yeah. I mean, the 10 car in 20 up to 2018, it was the worst full time car in the Cup Series,
From
mainly because of
2013 to
Danica Patrick.
2017, yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
what's even
then
more interesting was do you want me to mention this already?
yeah,
So during the 2016 season with what happened was Danica brought in a new sponsorship. Well, Nature's Bakery hopped on board with Stuart Haas Racing, but they didn't realize that NASCAR was declining really at the time. And Danica was not a good driver. So because of the really bad finishes, they didn't want to pay up. They didn't want to pay to Stuart Haas Racing. And what happened was a lawsuit followed, which Stuart Haas won. Stuart Haas Racing won. And they were rewarded with like $35 million, which they used for the 2018 season, which we're going to get into how Almirola had one of his
Oh yeah,
greatest seasons in 2018.
yeah. This is Almirola's best statistical season in his career in the Cup Series yet, because he garnered 4 top 5s and 17 top 10s, and finally broke through to get that second win, this time at Talladega in the playoffs. So that clinched him a spot in the round of 8. I mean, to say that the 10 if you were me hearing that, I was going to say the 10 car was going to do really good and make it to the round of 8 in 2018, you would be asking, Angel, are you on drugs or something? Because that 10 car has been really bad with Danica Patrick.
Wrong.
Yeah, they were so wrong. And yeah, and then we go to 2019, a little decreasing without a win, but he still maintained a pretty good high on top 5s with 30 and top 10s with 12, and an average finish of 15.4, but a better average start of 10.5. So he was basically much better in qualifying.
Oh, definitely. He had some really good qualifying. He had some really good weekends for qualifying.
Yeah, and then his peak in top 5s and top 10s was reached in 2020.
Oh my God, I don't
Yeah,
want to talk about that year for Almirola. That was a oh my God.
yeah, that was a bad season for Amarola, but in top 5s and top 10s he improved with 6 top 5s and 18 top 10s.
Yeah, they played
And
it really well, especially when it was like the strategy races, like when they really played like fuel strategy. They can always somehow. That's how they kind of managed to squeeze a top 5 from here and there in
yeah,
2020.
and in average finish he averaged a 13.3, so he was close of equalizing his best average finish from 2018. And he improved yet again on average start, this time with a 9.0. And then we had the 2021, which was a very bad down year. I mean, not only for Amarola but for Stuart Haas as a whole. I mean,
Yeah, it was pretty much their only win.
yeah, I mean, let's review the roster. Kevin Harvick coming up short of a Final Four appearance after 10 wins in 2020.
The most wins in 2020 as well.
Yeah, he had the most wins in 2020, and yet he misses a chance to win the title because of a choke that is the point system in the NASCAR Cup Series. Then we had Aric Almirola, who was coming a second best statistical season of his career. And then we had some new blood, sophomore driver Cole Custer, and replacing Clint Boyer in the 14, rookie Chase Briscoe, who seemed to be good in the he was slandered to be good in the road course, but we already know that Allmendinger got the best of him.
Yeah, I mean Briscoe was really good in the Xfinity series, no doubt about it. He won it from 2019 to 2020. He won like a total of like what was it, like 8 races, 8 or 9 races. I can't remember, but he won that. He won it. He was a really good. He was a contender pretty much in his Xfinity days, in his Xfinity um time with none other than Stuart Haas. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and apart from that, Almirola just had his lone victory of the season, which was also the lone victory of Stuart Haas as a whole, in the LifeLock 400 2.0 at New Hampshire. And I call it the 2.0 thing because it had to follow the footsteps of the OG LifeLock 400, which was in
yeah,
Kansas
Kansas,
City.
2007.
Yeah. Well,
Yes, I
if
know, because yeah, the darkness.
yeah,
Yeah,
and if you guys want for us to make a NASCAR hub related to the LifeLock 400 from 2007, let us know in the comments below and on our Twitters. I'll be putting them in the
yeah.
description. So
I would love to talk about the LifeLock 400 because I'm just gonna put it this right now. I have the diecast. I have the Biffle race
Yeah.
version 164 from
Lol.
that race that they made
Yeah.
in Winter Circle that year. Those like
So,
the glory
anyways,
days of diecast. I'm getting a little off topic.
yeah. So at the end for Almirola, one top five, two top fives, five top tens, and he decreased on average finish with 19.9. So this was his worst statistical year with Stuart Haas compared to his first year in 2018. So in total, he has made 388 starts for four different teams in the Cup Series. He has three wins, one with Richard Petty and two with Stuart Haas. 26 top fives, 84 top tens, three pole awards. He has led 893 laps in his entire career, and an average start of 18.4, an average finish of 19.1. He only DNQ'd five times in his career, and that's all across 14 years of competition in the highest level of American stock car racing. So, Aric Almirola, once your car rolls out the hauler at Daytona, we're gonna be putting a goodbye party for you, boy, and with a lot of bacon.
Yep. Go get that Smithfield, everyone.
Yeah. So, anyways, now it's time to get because we're in Daytona 500 Eve. Let's go and talk about the Daytona 500. So it all started with NASCAR started at Daytona with the Streamline Hotel and the first race, which was at the beach. This amazing oval. I mean, it was half sand and half pavement. It was considered a road course at the time
Yeah, it was
because
really interesting road course complex. It was they did like what you said,
yeah,
like half sand, half road. They raced like it had like there was a backstretch on the beach,
yeah,
and then there was like that really sharp turn that they took from
oh
what I've
yeah,
seen from like the photographs.
yeah,
But I also remember the Daytona Oval, the old Daytona Oval course from the old NASCAR Thunder games, 03 and 04, as they were unlockable tracks.
oh
And those
yeah.
are still fun to play.
I never played NASCAR 2003 or 2004, but that old Daytona Beach road course, that was the that is a reminiscent of what happened in the NASCAR Heat Series with Jefferson Raceway, because in that dirt road course you actually go through a section of pavement on the late model, which
I
is a
think it's like a
drag
drag
strip.
strip. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
a
it is a
drag
drag strip.
strip.
So yeah, that's
Yeah,
how
that track's
Daytona started.
broken.
Yeah, and then we head on to the finally the big event, the Daytona 500. So it started in the 1958 when Mr. Big Bill France Sr., the original president and CEO of NASCAR, he wanted a brand new big oval like this humongous tri-oval
Pretty much, he
for
wanted a bigger Darlington.
yeah, he already made Darlington in 1950, which is considered the first paved
Oh,
super speedway for
yeah,
NASCAR.
oval.
Yeah, which
But
that with it which that oval has a pretty interesting story because of its unique shape, which we'll get into it when we cover the history of the Southern 500 in this hub when we get to the throwback weekend. So Big Bill France said, "I want a big track, and I want it to be bigger and better in Darlington." And what better track to put it than in Florida?
yep.
And he did it right alongside where the new Daytona International Airport is. So you already knew that right when you were landing at Daytona, you could see Juan Montoya crashing into the jet dryer.
Or you could see I can't remember the guy's name that that flew out of the catch fence and landed in Lake Lloyd.
Yeah, Jim Stacy.
Jim
But
Stacy. Thank you.
yeah, but more on those stories in a little bit.
Yep.
So he made it this big, like very humongous. The track itself, when it opened, it was just the oval. It didn't have the road course. They didn't have the road course until 1985, but the oval is a total length of 2.500 miles, or 4.023 kilometers, which is the second biggest oval in NASCAR history. It was the biggest at the time until Talladega in 1969 was completed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
we,
track.
we'll get into that story, because we also have some pretty good stories of tracks as we head throughout the season. So yeah, the first big event at Daytona was the Daytona 500. It was first held in February 22nd of 1959, and after 200 laps, the first ever Daytona 500. That was really, really amazing. I mean, sure, it did have his bad moments, like for example, Lee Petty retiring from the race after. Well, he was almost retired from the race, but who really retired was Richard Petty after suffering some mechanical failure, as well as pole sitter Fireball Roberts. And it wasn't until the very ass end of the race that would have the very first controversy in Daytona 500 history. Who won?
It was like,
Because
yeah.
yeah, Johnny Beauchamp and Lee Petty crossed at exactly the same race time, 3 hours 41 minutes 22 seconds. And it wasn't like until Wednesday after the race that there was a photographer that
Yeah.
photographer that was taking some pictures on the infield. Which, oh my god, I mean, taking pictures with your camera on the infield grass, it's dangerous today, but they didn't care back in 1959.
Oh, hell no.
So they took a picture on the exact moment from where they crossed the start finish line. It was determined that Lee Petty was the winner. So the first generation of racing Petties won the Daytona 500. And how special the Petties were to Daytona is coming up. And then in 1960, it was Junior Johnson who won it. And it was the very first Daytona 500 held on Valentine's Day, February 14th.
And it was also the very first Daytona 500 to have a partial race, the partial part of the race to be televised by CBS. Not the full race, but part of the race.
Yeah, part of the race. And also like from another network, which was a local network from Daytona Beach. And then in 1961, Marvin Pant from racing for Smokey Unique, he won the 500. His number was 20, and he was racing a Pontiac. So that was the very first victory for a Pontiac in the Great American Race, because up to that point, 1961, Oldsmobile and Chevy won the event. And in 1962, Fireball Roberts, after that horrific engine failure in 1959, he finally got his revenge racing for Jim Stephens.
Yeah.
And he won the 500. Unfortunately, he would die 2 years later in Charlotte.
He really went out as a fireball.
Yeah.
That was a joke. That was a joke.
Yeah.
His real name's Glenn. He was just given the nickname. He nicknamed himself Fireball because he was
he was
high school. It was like a star pitcher for his high school team, and he was given the nickname Fireball.
Yeah, and then he started to moonshine during the Prohibition.
Yeah.
And then in 1963, Tiny Lund, who lost his life at Talladega, he was a champion of the Daytona 500 in 1963, and then in 1964, the big man himself, second generation star Richard Petty, racing for his father's team, which a little background that we skipped. In 1960, both runner-ups of the 1961 top two of the 1959 Daytona 500, Johnny Beauchamp and Lee Petty, launched their cars over the guardrail in turn 4.
I think it was 1961. Actually, it
Yeah,
wasn't
it was
1960.
1961, and that crash eventually ended up with Beauchamp and Petty's
That it
racing
ended
careers.
both their careers. Actually,
Yeah,
Johnny Beauchamp had like
and
head injuries, and then Lee Petty had like life-threatening
yeah,
injuries.
he was really lucky to survive.
Oh yeah, it was. I thought they were, because like the photographer that took the photo of those two cars colliding together and sailing out of the guardrail, because this was actually, so when Daytona was built, there was no catch fence. It was
Yeah.
literally all guardrail.
Hmm. Like it was they only have catch fence where the grandstands were, and the front stretch and back stretch had concrete walls, and then the turns they used guardrails. That's the same reason why Kel Yarbrough jumped the wall at Darlington.
I thought it was Bristol as well.
Yeah, and then in 1965, so yeah, 1964, Richard Petty, he finally got what his father Lee would want, another Daytona 500.
And it was actually
And
presented by Miss Japan.
yeah. Then 1965, Fred Lorenzen, racing for Holman Moody, he won the 500. And then in 1966, Richard Petty won his second 500 in 3 years. And then in 1967, Holman Moody would return to victory lane, this time with IndyCar superstar Mario Andretti.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. This
Yeah.
was actually proved the first time. Well, not really. Yes, actually the first
Yeah.
time for Mario Andretti to win both in F1, USAC, which was IndyCar at the time, and NASCAR.
Yeah. And
It's
then
incredible.
1968, Kel Yarbrough. And then in 1969, nice, Leroy Yarbrough was the winner of the 500.
Nobody talks about Leroy at all, sadly.
Yeah. And then in 1970, it was a huge show. And I mean, there's a lot of background in this one because it was the first 500 and the only one for the Plymouth Superbird, the car that was based for the Kingstrip Weathers in the movie Cars, and also was the first race for the 1970 Dodge Charger Daytona at Daytona. So if you ever wondered why the Dodge Charger of that year was named Daytona, it's because of this very racetrack, the town, and the event. And racing a Plymouth Superbird, Pete Hamilton would win with that 200 miles per hour.
It was one of the first upsets in a while in the so far in the Daytona 500 history. It was incredible.
Mm-hmm. And then and then later on in the year for the this is a little bit off topic. Later on in the year for the Dodge Charger, Buddy Baker would make that impressive 200.044 lap, and then NASCAR would ban its use for the very next year. And then in 1971, Richard Petty returned Petty Enterprises to another Daytona 500 victory, and the team as a whole won 2 in a row in 1970 and 1971. And then in 1972, AJ Foyt, which we consider the second USAC driver at the time to win the Daytona 500, racing for the famous Wood brothers in their amazing Mercury. And then in 1973 and 74, we would see our first repeat champion, Richard Petty. And fun fact, there's only been 4 back-to-back winners in the Daytona 500. Already mentioned the first one. And of course, and here's a question for everyone in the comments below. If you think if there's a driver that should win, that should have had more than 2 500s, hit us in the comments below.
Yeah, we'd like to see your replies.
Mhm. And then in 1975, Benny Parsons, racing for LG DeWitt, he won the 500. Which Benny Parsons, we all know most for his commentary in NBC and TNT from 2001 to 2006.
Yeah.
He was much better of a commentator than a racer.
Yeah, he was a great commentator. We miss him. Rest in peace, dude.
Then in 1976, the very first Crash Fest last lap,
Oh
the
God.
first the first craziest Daytona 500. So, and on a little bit of a backstory, David Pearson and Richard Petty were fierce rivals, and in the Firecracker 400 in one year, David Pearson played dead on Richard Petty and let him pass. And then when they were coming to the stripe, David Pearson would just zoom by Richard Petty and take the win. He was going to have that same strategy for the 76 500, but then they crashed out of turn number 4. And because third place was so far behind them, it was a race between two drivers. So
that were
whoever, it was like a one-off foot race on school. Whoever gets back to the line wins it. And so Richard Petty almost got it, but his car was stuck in the grass. And then
David Pearson won on pit road, literally.
Yeah. He went on pit road and he said, "You know what? I'm going to take this one from you, Richard." Another amazing win for his 102 career victories. I mean, he is 102 in the all-time wins list. Third, Jeff Gordon. First, Richard Petty. And then in 1977, we would see Kelly Yarbrough win the race, racing for Junior Johnson and Associates, which we most know him for Bill Elliott. And then in 1978, Bobby Allison would win his first Daytona 500. I mean, for the Allison family, they have been one of the biggest names throughout the 60s and the 80s with Bobby and Richard.
Yeah. Don't forget Donnie Allison as well.
Yeah. Nobody talks about him most of the time. Then 1979. This is a historic Daytona 500 that I think it deserves a NASCAR hub for its own. And the way it happened, it was really, really amazing. First of all, it was the first time it was going to be broadcast live, flag to flag on network television. Who? CBS. And then, second of all, there was a lot of rookies, and one little rookie from Kannapolis, North Carolina, would make a huge name for himself on this race. And that rookie was Dale Earnhardt. And for the race itself, it was pretty good, but it almost didn't happen because the whole East Coast, like the majority of the East Coast, was played out with snow. So there was a huge huge pack of families just watching on their televisions on their homes because they really didn't have anything to do. And then on the track itself, it was raining. So CBS actually pushed them to make the race happen. And they started the race 15 laps on their caution. It was really setting because you know that with the pushing that CBS did for the race to commence, you knew something special was about to happen. And I'm gonna let Maxwell talk about the last lap of the Daytona 500 of 1979. Why is such a historic Daytona 500 for NASCAR?
So pretty much what happened in the last lap of the 1979 Daytona 500, both top two runners were where Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison, they dominated the entire race. They gapped the whole entire other cars that were way behind them. What happened was they were actually behind each other. They were drafting with each other, and then coming to the back straightaway, they got side by side, and then Cale hit Donnie, then Donnie hit him, and then they collided, and both went into the wall in turn 3 and completely crashed and were literally out of it. Like, they couldn't get their cars restarted. And Richard Petty, who was in third place, went by them as they were wrecked, zoomed past them along with another driver that we're going to mention a little later, Darrell Waltrip, as he finished runner-up. But however, what happened after was that after Bobby finished the race, he went to go check on Donnie to make sure he was okay. And after Cale got out of his car, this was actually one of the first heated fights that ever happened at Daytona. So Cale punched Bobby because he thought that was Donnie, and then Bobby punched Cale, and then Donnie joined in and was trying to break it up. And like, they're quoting the announcer, "They're angry. They know they've lost."
And what a better defeat. And then the worst part is that the next day they were best friends again.
Yeah, literally, it was like the first ever like NASCAR brawl. Like, it was like the first like fight. It was awesome. It was like one of the greatest moments in not just Daytona's history, but in NASCAR's history.
Yeah, it was the first televised fight. And then so yeah, that was 1979. The best part is that it put NASCAR on a national state in that year. And then we move on to 1980. Buddy Baker, who we already mentioned, made that 200.044 lap on the Dodge Charger Daytona. He won the 500 in 1980, a 500 that was mostly boring, but it really had a lot of footsteps to follow from the 1979 edition. And then in 1981, Richard Petty won his seventh and final Daytona 500. That is a fun fact for everyone here in the audience, that Richard Petty is a 7-time Daytona 500 winner.
And he has the most Daytona 500 wins as well in NASCAR history.
Yeah. And then in 1982, Bobby Allison won his second 500, this time running a Buick. And oh yeah, we already mentioned, we forgot to mention that Richard Petty won it on the Buick. So there it is, Buick. Just the most random make in NASCAR, winning a Daytona 500 twice. And then in 1983 and 1984, Cale Yarborough became the second driver to win back-to-back 500s.
You think that was for Dygard?
Yeah.
I think it was Dygard.
And then
it was the Hardy's car.
Yeah. And then in 1985, the most popular driver at the time, Bill Elliott, finally got his chance on the shine spot, winning the 500 on his famous number 9 car.
That was the family-owned Bill Elliott team before Melling bought out the team.
Yeah. And then in 1986, Hendrick Motorsports jumped to the start line of the Daytona 500 with Jeff Bodine winning it. So there it is. Hendrick's first Daytona 500 victory was with Jeff Bodine in 1986. And then in 1987, Bill Elliott again. He went full-on victory in the 500. And then
we forgot to mention 86. Dale Earnhardt ran out of fuel coming into the final turn.
Yeah,
and that's how Jeff Bodine won the Daytona 500 that year in 86.
And then in 1988, we have a lot of whole kerfuffle to go through. So first of all, the restrictor plates were officially permanent for Daytona and Talladega. So this was going to be the very first restrictor plate Daytona 500, with Ken Schrader qualifying, and he said on an interview that that the restrictor plate made everyone the same speed and made it a lot more dangerous than when they were running 210 because he's right.
Get rid of the restrictor plates in NASCAR. We want them to run wild.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then we have another Bobby Allison crash in the catch fence.
Well, that wasn't actually that was Richard Petty actually. Allison crashed in the catch fence at Talladega.
Yeah.
In '88.
Yeah, that's a mention. The second thing was a tiny company from Iowa named Hoosier Racing Tires, headed by Bob Newton, decided we're gonna make some starts. And while the tire wars were a big part of 1988, both brands performed equally in the Daytona 500 with the highest finisher being Neil Bonnet finishing fourth. And then the third biggest history of the Daytona 500 was a Busch Clash driver, Tim Richmond, being denied the opportunity of running in the Busch Clash because of a drug test.
Which found out that he had because he had AIDS, I guess, because
Yeah.
he was actually sidelined because of pneumonia.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, how the race ended, it was the very first father-son 1-2 finish, with Bobby Allison winning and Davey coming in a close second. And they had a pretty good father-son moment in victory lane.
Yeah, it was a good moment. It was a really cool moment.
Yeah. It was foreshadowed for Bobby because then he had his career-ending injury at Pocono later in the season. And then in 1989, you know him, he's famous. But before we get into him, another backstory. Yeah, remember that tire war that we mentioned? Yeah. So Goodyear decided, you know what? We're gonna put the name Goodyear back on the spotlight of NASCAR with a brand new radial tire. So Speedweek's testing started. Dale Earnhardt blow a tire and goes head on into the wall. And Richard Childress says, "You know what? You're not gonna die on this tire. We're gonna put you on Hoosiers." And then it was a one-off at first, but then Bill Elliott wound up with a wrist fracture after crashing into the wall. And he was the defending champion at the time, so yeah, he wouldn't be able to finish the 500. So only two drivers started on radial tires for the 500, and Hoosier got his very first Daytona 500 victory thanks to the famous, the amazing, the super buggity man, Darrell Waltrip.
And what's even more interesting was that Darrell Waltrip had to save fuel in order to win the 500 because his crew chief kept telling him, "You need to come in so we can get it gassed up." He's like, "Just let me save. Just let me save."
Yeah, it was the very first fuel mileage. It was the first out of two fuel mileage 500s. The second one it's in the modern day. And then in 1990, oh boy, Dale Earnhardt was leading. He had already had a lot of problems like mechanical failures, crashes, spins, running out of gas, and nothing could have stopped him to get the 500 except Lady Luck. He ran over some debris and cut the tire, and that gave Derek Cope the victory
for Bob Whitcomb Racing.
Yeah,
which was actually another big upset win for for NASCAR at the time.
Yeah,
because it was a small team.
Yeah, and for Earnhardt himself, that was the most heartbreaking loss of the Daytona 500. No one except Lady Luck could have prevented the Intimidator from winning his very first Daytona 500.
Yeah, what's even more interesting was that the Bob Whitcomb team, they won another race that year. They won at Dover as well. So it was like that was like 1990 was their best season.
Yeah. And after that, what Derek Cope became was a meme. And then in 1991, driving for Morgan McClure, Ernie Irvan, who was a driver that almost lost his life from a basilar skull fracture at Michigan in 1994, he won the Daytona 500. It was
That was like
unfortunate for him.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was unfortunate for him, but at least he saved his life by stepping away from NASCAR with a one Daytona 500.
Until he came back in '96 with
Yeah.
when he came back in '96 with Robert Yates, and then driving for what was MB2 at the time.
Yeah.
For well, actually, no, not '97, '98. Actually, he drove for Robert Yates for 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
My bad comments.
Yeah. And then in 1990,
and then he injured himself again at Michigan and hung up the helmet.
Yeah. And then in 1992, we all knew. Remember that 1-2 finish that we had? How about we take away the father and we put the son first? Because Bobby's son Davey won the 1992 Daytona 500, and fun fact, he was close. He was so close.
It was Morgan Shepherd. He edged out Morgan Shepherd, who drove for Wood Brothers by a nose.
Yeah, he was so close for Shepherd. And as for Allison, it was also so close in the championship until he decided to pile up into Ernie Irvan at Atlanta and give the championship to Alan Kawicki.
Yeah, it was a big choke.
Yeah, and it was the only choke in his life because he would later in 1993, while they were heading to Talladega via helicopter to watch Neil Bonnet practice at Daytona, he crashed his no, not Daytona. It was at Talladega. Sorry. He crashed his helicopter.
The helicopter crashed, and Davey died from his injuries.
And the cause the cause of the accident was Davey's lack of experience piloting helicopters.
Yeah, and what's even more sadder was that his brother in '91, who was driving in the ARCA series, Clifford Allison, died at Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like the future Allisons were gone from racing.
Yeah, if Davey Allison didn't die, he would probably be bigger than Jeff Gordon.
I would say Ricky Rudd would have never gotten a ride at I would say Ricky Rudd would have never gotten a ride at Robert Yates. He would probably still been driving for his own team.
Yeah. Then in 1993, the first round of the Dale and Dale show. Holy smokes. So first of all, Hoosier was supposed to run the Xfinity Series race in that year, but then they had a lot of tire failures in practice, and they said, we're going to wait until 94. But going back to the 500 itself, Dale Earnhardt and Dale Jarrett, they were battling so close to the 500. They were not fans of each other heading to the finish. And it was one of the best heartwarming Daytona 500 victories because his father Ned was commentating for CBS the final lap. It was a crushing disappointment for Dale Earnhardt to lose in that way, but Dale Jarrett, he really needed his moment, and it was the first Daytona 500 for the famous coach of the Washington football team, a man by the name of Joe Gibbs.
Thus, a legendary team was born.
Yeah. Then in 1994, oh boy, this was the most tragic speed weeks to date. Yeah. So, remember Hoosier Tires, how they pulled off from the Xfinity race in 93? They came back in 94 because they developed finally a radial tire and they were ready to challenge Goodyear again. And they had a lot of drivers, like for example, Darrell Waltrip and Rick Mast was also there. Neil Bonnet was going to be in with driving a 6 race schedule for Phoenix Racing, which we all knew as H. God Motorsports. And they ran Speed Weeks testing, and Neil Bonnet lost his life on Friday practice, which was Daytona 500 opening practice. And that wasn't even the biggest because I forgot to mention this, but a day before that, Andy Farr trying to qualify for his second ARCA race hit the wall head on, and he almost died because he suffered a bruised heart, and the impact broke the outside wall. So that first crash from Andy Farr was a sign of things to come. And then, like I mentioned, we lost Neil Bonnet, and then in Monday practice, Rodney Orr, champion of the Goodies Dash Series, he flipped, and he died because the cabin was caved in when the car landed on the driver's side roof. Both accidents were caused by broken right rear shock mounts, but they were concerns of the safety of maybe Hoosier caused the accidents. I mean, I don't believe that the tires were a contributing factor to the accident, but it was almost a contributing factor.
Yeah, and that's when Hoosier really started to step away from NASCAR after '94
Yeah.
because NASCAR permanently made Goodyear as the official tire of NASCAR.
hmm And speaking of Goodyear, Sterling Marlin won the '94 500.
Which gave Morgan McClure their second Daytona 500 victory.
Yeah. And their third in 1995.
Yeah, Sterling Marlin's a repeatable Daytona 500 winner.
Yeah, alongside Richard Petty and Kelly Yarbrough. And then in '96, Dale and Dale Show round 2. And still, Dale Jarrett won it. Again. This time, running for Robert Yates. So that was Yates' second 500 victory.
Yep.
And then in 1997, it looked to be a repeat of the '96 because of what happened between Dale Jarrett and Dale Earnhardt a year prior, and because they each won a duel in that season. And we had a rookie in the poll. I forgot to mention, Loy Allen Jr. became the first rookie to lead the field to the green flag in the 500, and the second rookie in history was Mike Skinner.
Yeah, I totally forgot to mention that. That was
Yeah.
a really interesting one because Black Flags Matter actually covered the Loy Allen bus
History.
video.
Yeah.
So it's kind of really weird to look at the Daytona 500 pole history list and notice Loy Allen.
Yeah, it is really weird. And for the race itself, it was really exciting, and then we saw the flip of Cartoon Network's life with the 29 car flipping.
Yeah, that was that they actually reused that car from '96 because that team was it was like Diamond Hill Racing. They were so underfunded.
Yeah, I mean to have yourself funded by a TV company like Cartoon Network,
The Cartoon Network Wacky Racing, yeah,
Yeah.
It was. I have that diecast actually, both '96 and '97.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, that was a ride that I think it was Dexter from Dexter's Lab that was in the hood of the car.
No, it was Scooby Doo.
Oh yeah, well, Scooby Doo went for a ride that he won't forget for a long time.
Yeah, Lake Speed had the Dexter's. Now Jerry Nadeau had the Dexter's Laboratory car. That was '99.
Yeah. So yeah, and then in that same 500, Dale Earnhardt was again close of winning it, but he'll have to wait another year because he flipped
He flipped,
as well.
and they still repaired the car.
Yeah,
and they finished the race.
I mean, what happened is that he collected Ricky Rudd and Dale Jarrett. So Jarrett retired from the race as well as Ricky Rudd because the hood flew into the grandstands. almost. And Dale Earnhardt, he climbed out of the car, went to the ambulance, then came out of the ambulance, hopped back inside the car, drove it to pit road, and shut up, shut up, Danny. You got it. No, it wasn't Danny. It wasn't Danny Chocolate. It was Larry Mack who was.
It was Larry Mack, yeah.
Yeah. So he said, Larry Mack, shut the heck up. We're gonna you guys are gonna follow my lead. You're gonna repair that car. And then a NASCAR official said, you gotta have a spoiler, man. And I don't know how they attached the spoiler.
They used a lot of tape, let's just say.
Yeah, let's just say that they used a lot of tape to attach the spoiler, but that was the best Dale Earnhardt moment.
He literally barked orders. He was barking, according to CBS. Mike Joy was reporting that they were he was barking orders.
It was actually Dick Berggren who was.
Dick Berggren, because Joy was commentating.
Yeah, and he was barking instructions to the crew, and he said that if they could have made a lap or two on that battered car, it was a miracle. And it was a miracle that Dale Earnhardt finished the race.
With that beaten up of a race car, and it's actually at the RCR Museum still.
Wow, I really need to go to that museum. But holy crap, that was an amazing Dale Earnhardt moment from the late 90s. Of course, he finished finishing 5 laps down was not the thing that he wanted, but at least it was better than DNFing. And the man that he was of all colors. He used Vaseline on the 24 Chevrolet. He looked gay. He cried in this first career win at the Charlotte 600. He had the Rainbow Warriors singing YMCA. Jeff Gordon won the race.
His first Daytona 500.
Yeah. I took all that from Tim Wilson's song called Jeff Gordon's Gay.
God.
Such a funny song.
4 years in Cup, and he finally got his first career Daytona 500 victory, which was amazing for the Hendrick franchise because they actually went. I think it was like their first 1, 2, 3 finish. Because Terry finished second, and Ken Schrader finished third.
It wasn't Ken Schrader. It was Ricky Craven.
Ricky Craven.
And and it was special because Rick Hendrick was battling leukemia and at that moment.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. And then in 1998, so a huge backstory on this one. You remember that rookie from 1979? Yeah, he let's just say that he went with all the high hopes because because there's one saying that Mike Joy said in Victory Lane.
20 years of frustration.
Yeah. No,
20
it
years
wasn't
of failure.
Yeah. I mean, it was 20 years of failure because we have to remember Dale Earnhardt, he had crashes, spins, flips,
ran out of gas.
Lady Luck cutting a tire on him. Dale Jarrett. It was 20 years of that. And hey, oh my God, who was because it was Mike Joy who mentioned that there was this it was John Elway. Yeah, it was John Elway. They said that Mike Joy said that if John Elway could win the Super Bowl, Dale Earnhardt could win the Daytona 500.
Oh my God, Mike Joy got that right.
Yeah.
I'm a Packers fan, so I'm heartbroken from that Super Bowl.
Yeah. So and when Dale Earnhardt did win, he used a side draft from Rick Mast and hold on to Bobby Labonte, and he managed to finally win the Daytona 500. A little Mickey, I would say, but that was because well, I say a little Mickey because Lake Speed and John Andretti spun out on the backstretch. And because there was no green white checkered at the time, or NASCAR overtime attempt at the time, they said that whoever gets back to the start finish line, they would get the white and the yellow together.
Yep, it was pretty much that they would finish the race under caution.
Yeah. And then we hit to 1999.
We should mention that after Dale won the 98 Daytona 500, because it was also the 50th anniversary of NASCAR.
Yeah.
Literally all the crew members lined up on pit road and high-fived Dale Earnhardt as he went down pit road. Every crew member. Yeah. That's how respected Dale Earnhardt was.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
and that's how happy everyone was when Dale Earnhardt won. I'm pretty sure the Dale Jarrett fans were pissed, and as well as the Gordon fans, because they hated Dale Earnhardt with a passion.
Well, basically everyone in the NASCAR fandom, like how everyone hates Kyle Busch today, that was Dale Earnhardt back then.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, if you were a Gordon fan or a Jarrett fan, you literally hated Earnhardt with a passion. Or a Terry Labonte fan or Mark Martin, because Earnhardt, he had a lot of grudges. Earnhardt would wreck Mark Martin or Terry Labonte or Rusty Wallace whenever he pleased.
What everyone that isn't a fan of Junior Nation, what they remember of Junior's father, it is Dale Earnhardt wrecking their favorite driver.
But it was actually fun. It was actually fun. It was like when...
Yeah, because when you saw him in the rearview mirror, he was or either make a legitimate pass or just straight up dump you to the Shadow Realm.
Is get out of the way or I'm dumping you.
Yeah. And most of the time it was banishing you to the Shadow Realm, like Terry Labonte, but sometimes he would pass you clean. So yeah, all that hatred would give Kyle Busch a run for its money. So anyways, in 1999, oh boy, everyone wondered, can Dale Earnhardt win it again? And
sadly no.
Yeah, sadly no. And the way that race happened is that it was very controversial because Kenny Irwin Jr. decided it was a great idea to dump Dale Jarrett, his own teammate, and send him on a flip.
I'm shaking my head.
Yeah, and on the outside pole for that 500. Was a rookie from the newly formed at the time Indy Racing League. He was coming from Rushville, Indiana, a champion in USAC quarter midgets. He was Tony Stewart. Damn, how much of a bad luck he had in that time.
One of the worst cursed drivers to never win a Daytona 500.
And then in 1999, Jeff Gordon won it, Dale Earnhardt second, and Kenny Irwin Jr. third. After dumping Dale
That's
Jarrett.
What you get for dumping Dale Jarrett.
Yeah. I mean, his overall, the 1999 season was abysmal for Kenny Irwin Jr., but for Dale Jarrett, it was out-karmerized by exiting the 500 early to walk with the championship at season's end.
Yeah. What's even funnier is that Tony Stewart punched Kenny Irwin so many times at Martinsville because Kenny Irwin Jr. was such an idiot.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he's dead, unfortunately. He died in New Hampshire. Same weekend as Adam Petty, sadly.
And then we hit to 2000. So, a little tiny story. The Truck Series ran their first Nextra Energy 250. Without restrictor plates, and let's just say Jeff Bodine went Chernobyl into the catch fence.
So yeah, what happened was Kurt Busch got into another driver, and then the
Yeah.
other driver, I can't remember who the name it was. He crashed right into Jeff Bodine, and he went sailing into the hatch vents. And then, like, the entire sheet metal was gone. Like, the truck was like all you could see was the roll cage and the driver.
Mm-hmm.
It is crazy how he survived that because he suffered so many injuries after that wreck that he literally retired from racing.
Yeah. Yeah, he basically said he said in an interview for ESPN that he hoped to be in Vegas after those injuries, but we all knew that he wasn't going to be in Las Vegas. And for the race itself,
Well, actually, no, I'm wrong.
Oh.
He did race for Joe
yeah.
Bessie's team,
yeah,
but then he retired after
and then
because of his injuries.
yeah, and then in the duels, well, this happened before the truck race. In the duels, we saw the beginning of the holy.
I'm wrong again.
What?
God dang it! Jeff made also a start in 2003 in the Open.
Yeah.
In the not the All-Star, but the Budweiser shootout or whatever, the Bud shootout. Yeah, I totally forgot that.
Yeah, and then in the duels for that 2000 Speed Weeks, we saw the beginning of a flip, because that flip in that Castrol 27 car was the summarize of Casey Atwood's career.
Yep.
A
Poor Matt
total
Kenseth.
fucking disaster.
Poor Matt Kenseth that got caught up in that wreck.
Yeah, poor Kenseth. And speaking of Kenseth, he was a rookie in that year 2000, and it was the first time we saw two Earnhardts on the track, because the protege of Dale Earnhardt, coming fresh off two consecutive Xfinity championships, Dale Earnhardt Jr. made his first ever Daytona 500 start.
Yep, that's what you get for buying Stavola Brothers.
Yeah. And as for the race itself, yeah, it was only 9 lead changes in the race, and it was pretty boring. And hey, at least we saw
there was actually a moment where like Johnny Benson Jr. was going to maybe win the race.
Yeah, that was a
fuel mileage problem though.
Yeah, that was a problem. Yeah, Dale Jarrett decided to just put the 9th and final lead change of the day, and he would start his title defending season strong with that 500 win, but he would suck all year.
Yeah.
And then 2001. So starting into this one, there was a lot of changes for the Super Speedway package because of what happened to everyone and to Jeff Bodine.
And what also happened to Kenny Irwin and Adam Petty.
Yeah.
NASCAR introduced the kill switch.
Yeah.
Which would like shut off the car.
It was actually
the car was going too fast.
Yeah. It was actually called the dumb switch because it was developed by Jack Roush.
Yeah. And then they renamed it to the kill switch.
Yeah. And also they introduced like this thing that we haven't seen this in any restrictor plate package ever since 2002, but this rear a cross blade from behind the in-car from behind the roof camera. It was a roof fin that it was supposed to like cut air and make the pack like more tight. So yeah, that was really weird. And they also had 70 degrees of spoiler on them, and they increased the weight of the plates, and those breakaways were basically a thing of the past at that time.
Yeah, it was also Dodge's first return to NASCAR since the mid-70s when Chrysler abruptly left.
Yeah,
NASCAR.
And then it was all and they started strong with Bill Elliott winning the pole for the 500. And throughout the day was really cool. It was really cool to see the racing because we actually saw 3 cautions. First, after lap 49, one of the last drivers to get into the 500 driving for Phoenix Racing was Jeff Purvis, who he was slated to run for them. he got into the wall hard. He basically killed the driver's side of the car with that hit. And while that was going on, then the second caution was a young rookie who would soon became the radio sweetheart, Kurt Busch. He spun out.
Yep.
And then when they restarted with 77 to go, it was 3 by 3 by 3 by 3. It was really tight. I mean, but with entertaining racing, it comes very entertaining consequences, because one of the biggest problem with all that tight pack racing was if they crashed, they're gonna crash big.
And voila.
Yeah.
Robbie
Tony-
Gordon got turned,
Yeah.
and Tony Stewart went in the air, got caught up with Bobby Labonte. It was the big one, literally. Like Stewart went flying in the air. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy because they all crashed. I mean, Bobby Labonte, John Andretti, Robbie Gordon, Tony Stewart, Ward Burton, Jason Leffler, rookie, Jeff
Yep.
Gordon, who you could basically see for a little glimpse on the on the replay camera, Steve Park,
Yep, I remember Steve Park was in that wreck.
yeah, Jerry Nadio. Basically, all the Hendrick cars were killed in one wreck.
Terry and Bobby Labonte, the old Bonnie
Yeah.
brothers.
Buckshot Jones, who was also a rookie, Johnny Benson Jr., Jimmy Spencer. Basically, half the field, 18 cars were caught up in the crash. And that was pretty bad. And then when the lead change was put up for the 49th and final time, Michael Waltrip, a journeyman at that point, who had only made 162 attempts, and he never got a win.
He technically won the 97 All-Star race.
Yeah.
For Wood Brothers.
Yeah. That's true, but in general terms, that streak was still alive, and then he would actually go to win it, but under tragic circumstances.
Yeah.
Dale Earnhardt got loose from the fender of Sterling Marlin, and he went initially down and then overcorrected, went up, gets collected by Ken Schrader. So he's not only going forward when he's crashing into the wall, but he's also being pushed to go through to the window net because of the impact he received from the 36 car.
Yeah.
And when Michael Waltrip won, it was all fun and celebration for everyone mostly. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. was in a dead heat run towards the infield care center. And there's an actual shot of Fox Sports where Teresa and Dale Jr. entered Halifax Hospital.
Yeah, and I remember Darrell Waltrip saying, "I hope Dale's okay."
Yeah. Yeah, he mentioned it when after Mike Joy asked him if Michael Waltrip winning it was better than him winning it in 1989. But little did we know that we have lost Dale in that crash.
It was literally the saddest day in NASCAR history to date.
Yeah, because the next day, nobody was talking about Michael Waltrip's winless streak broken. Nobody was talking about the big one. Nobody was talking about the record-setting 49 lead changes. Nobody was talking about the good racing because it didn't matter. And then we move on to 2002. So, we have a comment here. Travis says, "Hey boy." Well, hey boy. Then for 2002, they made the package a little less aggressive because of what happened in 2001, and because of the less aggressiveness, it led to a rookie take on the pole, and it was a rookie who would become the GOAT. Yeah, you already know what I'm talking about. Jimmy Johnson led the field for the 2002 Daytona 500. And that basically started the youth movement in NASCAR at the time. But after 3 laps, Tony Stewart was he lost an engine. Once again, Tony Stewart. Like there's
I don't know how that. I don't know.
yeah, I really don't know how that happened. I mean, the engine was fresh, a fresh engine, and just went boom.
Exploded.
And then Dale Jr. crashed in the wall.
No.
And then while that was the whole racing was going on, the big one happened, cutting the field nearly in half. And when it was caused, it was also caused by Kevin Harvick. And while that was going on after that, on the restart, the man who was leading the most laps in the event, Sterling Marlin, he got into a little bit of a fender bender with Jeff Gordon, causing another massive wreck, this time clogging the track. And then on the red flag, he decides, my fender is so broken. NASCAR wouldn't mind if I just take my Hans of Ice off. I just take the seat belts off. I take the window net off, jump off, and just check on it a little bit.
Just touch it a little.
And like BP said, oh, he can't do that.
Because NASCAR told him to get back in his car.
Yeah, because that's an actual rule. You cannot work on your car under red flag conditions. In the end, Ward Burton would give Dodge's return Daytona 500 victory. And in 2003, well, Jeff Green won the pole, but at the front, they were not letting him win the first lap. There was like, no, you're not leading the first lap. We're not having another Jimmy Johnson leading the first lap of the 500. And then the rain came out. It came.
Well, actually, it was before. Well, yeah, the rain came.
Yeah,
and then it stopped raining, and then they resumed.
Yeah, they resumed, and then Sterling Marlin got black flagged, and then we saw the beginning of Rocket Man.
Ryan Newman.
Yeah, Rookie of the Year for 2002, flips, and while that was going on, Ken Schrader decides, I'm going to go through pit road to try to avoid it, and at the same time, Bobby Labonte was making a pit stop, and they tangled up on pit road.
Well, yeah, what happened was Schrader clipped Ryan Newman, and he darted off to pit road, and then Newman just started to flip.
Yeah. And then
he destroyed like the entire rear of the car. It was incredible.
Yeah, it destroyed the rear axle.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened, but wow. And then the rain came back. And when it was totally decided that the race was not going to be resumed, Michael Waltrip got his second, but this time under much better circumstances, Daytona 500. And then in 2004, he would flip.
Yep.
And actually, that 2004 500, it was like the shortest entry list for 500. If you've seen Rise of the Field Fillers, you would get it.
Yeah, Kirk Shelmerdine failed to qualify, as well as a bunch of others.
And at the end, if you're a Junior Nation fan, you would be absolutely happy to hear that Dale Jr. was the winner of the 2004 500.
And it was incredible. Like, he held off. So, like, there were a few other people that were there as well, like Scott Wimmer, another rookie.
Mm-hmm.
He was running third.
Yeah, he was running third. But we all know that Scott Wimmer became a NASCAR bust.
Well, let's mention 2005. Scott Wimmer flipped.
Oh yeah, yeah. 2005 Scott Wimmer flipped, and Greg Biffle was involved in that.
Don't say Biffle. Don't say Biffle. I don't want to mention.
And then coming to the last lap, Scott Riggs and Jimmy Johnson played ping pong with Tony Stewart, while Jeff Gordon hold off Kurt Busch and Dale Jr. and Scott Riggs to win his third and final 500. And then in 2006, it was misty that day, and they decided it's misty, but we're just gonna put some penalties for aggressive driving if you've played NASCAR games on the EA Sports Saga. And throughout the day, I mean, Tony Stewart got the first penalty, and then he decided to send Kenseth almost to the Shadow Realm, but I don't know how he came back on the racetrack and no one avoided him.
And we'll mention that again because it happened again in the 2007 Daytona 500.
Yeah. And at the end, when the lights came on, the mist was really coming down. So NASCAR said, we're only going to do this green, white, checkered. And if they wreck before the white flag, we're just going to end it on the caution. We're not going to do another green, white, checkered attempt because the mist is coming really hard. And at the end, the kid, who we mentioned, won the 2002 pole. Jimmy Johnson won the 2006 500, and it propelled him to his first out of 5 consecutive championships and 7 overall. And fun fact, he didn't have Chad Knaus on the pit box because he was suspended for an infraction during qualifying.
Yeah, it's an incredible story with Johnson winning the 2006 Daytona 500. But as we go to 2007, this is one of the greatest Daytona 500 races of all time.
Yeah,
and we should start off by saying, who's going to be on the front row? Let's just say a whole team swept the front row, and that is Robert Yates Racing.
Yeah,
out of all the teams.
Yeah. It was everyone thought Robert Yates is officially back. They're gonna win this races, and David Gilliland is gonna be one of the best drivers in NASCAR. No.
Sadly, no.
Yeah. And throughout the day, everyone ran equally.
Like Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch both crashed.
Yeah.
Each other.
Yeah. How did the most lap sled drivers crashed? Yeah, that's what happened. And
there was like another wreck on the back stretch, and then there was also, you said, like Clint Boyer was sent to the Shadow Realm, but unfortunately took out Ken Schrader as he came back onto the track.
Yeah.
And, no, it was Dave Blaney. It was Dave Blaney.
It was Dave Blaney, and he came back and just sent basically
Ken Schrader.
Schrader and Boyer to the Shadow Realm. And then another caution. This time Dale Jr. involved.
That's the one I was going to mention.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you wrecked on the backstretch.
And then 2 to go. A driver with a lot of high hopes to run part-time after cutting ways with Roush was in front. Mark Martin, who was the biggest storyline that not winning the 500. He was actually racing for Bobby Ginn.
Yeah.
And that Bobby Ginn car was really fast on speed weeks until Kevin Harvick decided, nope, your grandpa.
You're going to be the bridesmaid. You're going to be the
bridesmaid again. And Kyle Busch decided it was a good idea to go on the apron. took Kenseth
and Biffle.
Yeah, David Gilliland was on top of somebody.
He was on Biffle. He climbed on Biffle's car.
Yeah, and
we don't mention that wreck.
Yeah, and Sterling Marlin decided to waste manage Casey Mears and a flipping Clint Boyer.
And Jeff Gordon hit the wall as well.
Yeah, and big shout out to Clint Boyer for finishing the race upside down in the 18th position.
We got one car on its roof, and they're still coming across the line. They're still wrecking.
Warriors
Warriors
on
on
fire.
fire. Jeff Gordon's wrecked.
I mean, everyone was wrecked back there. Back there.
Gilliland, Biffle,
Carl Edwards, Casey
all
Mears.
crashed on the
Yeah.
final lap.
I mean, and how did he manage to flip, like to go on fire? I mean, Joe Chitwood couldn't do that. And in 2008, it was the first Daytona 500 for a boxy, skeptical, cordy, bad car that was called the Car of Tomorrow, also known as
The COT.
or Gen 5. While that car was really weird for 2008 to be full time, it performed a pretty good race in the Daytona 500, even having a two-car tandem over on one point of the race, but more on the two-car tandems later on. And in the end, it was Ryan Newman having a 1-2 with Kurt Busch to win Roger Penske's first 500.
As you know, Tony Stewart.
Yeah. Damn, Tony Stewart was really cursed. Then in 2009, for 2009, it was really another great 500 until Brian Vickers and Dale Jr. decided we're going to be aggressive.
It was technically Junior's fault.
Yeah, it was Junior's fault. Yeah, it was his fault. And then it collected the man who led 88 laps up to that point, Kyle Busch. And another 10 cars were sliding into the infield. I mean, Robbie Gordon's Jim Beam car.
Yep.
Jim Johnson.
Jim Johnson was in that wreck. David
Stremme on the car that won the year before. And Elliott Sadler was really close of winning that 500. In the end, Matt Kenseth won it because of
rate shortened.
Yeah.
And Reed Sorensen did pretty well that race as well. Yeah. He got a top 10.
And then in 2010, Mother Nature decided, let's put a pothole. And it caused a lot of problems. They red flagged the race once. No. Twice to fix the potty. And then it was a pretty good race to the finish until Jamie McMurray on his McDonald. Oh, wait.
Bass Pro Shops.
Yeah, on his Bass Pro Shops car. Won the 500. Little Jamie, baby.
It was a really good win for Jamie McMurray.
Yeah. And it was another win for DEI.
Technically, Earnhardt Ganassi.
Half DEI. And then 2011. But before we get into this, remember that pothole? Yeah. It was decided to scrape it off, Lightning McQueen style, and create a brand new surface. And because of the two-car tandem working at Talladega, which gave us in 2010 the most competitive race in NASCAR history with 88 lead changes, they decided to let the car's two-car tandem in the Daytona 500. But then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 cautions. 16 cautions in one Daytona 500. Basically the fourth worst 500 in history. And one of the worst cautions was when Brian Keselowski and David Rudiman all caught up. Michael Waltrip was in it. All three Hendrick cars of Jeff Gordon, Mark Martin,
Greg
and
Biffle.
Jimmy Johnson.
And
Biffle was
involved. Matt Kenseth.
Yeah. Brian Vickers, coming fresh off a blood clot, was also in. And the best, and nobody remember, and what most people remember was not Turbine winning the 500. What mostly they remember was David Reagan deciding it was a great idea to go below to the inside before the start-finich line. He
had the chance to win the 500 and he blew it.
Yeah, you blew it. But in the end, like I mentioned, Trevor Bayne won it. And then in 2012, holy smokes. So it was the first time the 500 was postponed to a Monday. And it wasn't like a Monday noon race. No, it was prime time under the lights.
And lap 2, Jimmy Johnson gets a tap from Elliott Sadler and goes spinning, causing David Reagan and Danica Patrick to wreck.
Yeah. The defending champion of the 500, Trevor Bayne, was involved, as well as radio sweetheart Kurt Busch mode. And Matt Kenseth won the race, but nobody remembers that of the 2012 Daytona 500.
No.
What instead they remember was David Blaney staying out with another 3 cars, and when they came back around with 40 laps to go, they saw on the backstretch a jet dryer decided to go Chernobyl. Reason? Juan Pablo Montoya broke what was holding the track mount in the rear that was already starting cracking a few laps ago. It just decided to send the car around and implode that jet fuel machine on a trailer used to drive the racetrack. And it wasn't from the hit that lit it up. Something got hot when the whole damage was done, and it started lit. And it looked like they were missing the flame because what they were actually doing was trying to keep the racing surface cool, because they knew that at some point the machine was going to run out of fuel. So yeah, that's what they remember of the 2012 500. And then in 2013, oh yeah, it was boring.
Other than Danica Patrick winning the pole, being the first female to win the pole for the Daytona 500.
And also being the first female to lead a boys event in the Daytona 500, nonetheless. And then
there was a crash in the early portion of the race with Kevin Harvick, Casey Mears, sadly Trevor Bayne.
Yeah. Montoya, who was already in hot water after the jet dryer crash. And Tony Stewart. Again, Tony Stewart.
Yep.
And then at the end, Jimmy Johnson won it, which propelled him to his 6th championship out of 7. And then in 2014, finally the package was changed. A new driver, the return of the legendary 3 car, was here after it was changed to the 29, with Austin Dillon being the winner of the pole, and he led until Larson got in the wall, Truex blew up, rain came on, stopped. Casey Kane spawned on pit road. Casey Kane was penalized for avoiding an accident. We saw the big one involving Danica Patrick, Michael Waltrip. Then we saw another big one this time. It was not a big one. It was just a lone crash of Trevor Bayne, past winner of the 500. And then we saw another crash, this time involving Parker Kligerman's Muppets car. In the end, Dale Jr. won it.
It wasn't a Muppet car. It was just the lending tree. It was just their mascot. It looks like a Muppet.
Yeah, it looked like it.
I literally thought it was a Muppet car. I thought it really was a Muppet car.
Yeah. Then in 2015, the worst NASCAR season of the 2010s, the pole winner was making his 23rd and final Daytona 500, Jeff Gordon. It was a joke. He's coming back next year. He actually said that after winning at Martinsville. So yeah, the finish was good. The racing was good.
It was okay. There were some moments where Tony Stewart barely hit the wall and broke something on his car.
On his final 500, because next year he would just be obliterated in a Can-Am crash.
God.
And then Brad Keselowski decided to drink a brand new taste of Miller Lite called Miller Barbecue.
Yeah, he blew his engine. I totally forgot he blew his engine in that race.
And at the end, Smoke troubled, Jeff Gordon wrecked, Matt Crafton avoided it. No, he was in the wreck as well. And the question is where they're gonna let them race back or take the yellow. NASCAR took the yellow, and Joey Logano won the 500.
Yeah, that was a really interesting finish. Just to let you know, I gotta start wrapping it up. I have work tomorrow morning, so
Yeah, of course. We have a few more Daytona 500s to go from 2016 all the way to 2021, but we'll get into those ones tomorrow. So, to everyone, thank you guys for watching this amazing long Daytona holidays stream of NASCAR Hub, and we'll see you in the next one. He is Maxwell Fay, and I'm Angel
bye.
Diaz Rhoda, and you made it to the next play.
Have a good night, folks.